Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. It's great to be back in my hometown with Hudson County Executive Tom DeJoy, who has steered Hudson County through the COVID-19 pandemic extraordinarily well. I appreciate Sheriff Shalari being with us and creating the public safety opportunities here, as well as all of the men and women of the Union City and Hudson County Sheriff's Department, the extraordinary people who protect us every day. Appreciate Assemblyman Raj Mukherjee, who is here with us as well in support of the Postal Service. And I want to thank Rich O'Connell, who you'll hear from shortly, the president of the New Jersey State Association of Letter Carriers, for joining us to discuss the challenges facing rank-and-file postal workers, and he'll discuss that briefly in just a few moments. Now, I have been in Congress for nearly 3 decades. I've served with 4 presidents, Democrats and Republicans. I've seen bitter disagreements between Congress and administrations, and have been at the helm of tough fights and negotiations. But never have I seen a president play politics with the U.S. Postal Service or make our mail a partisan issue. But Donald Trump never fails to find ways to attack our democratic system if it will benefit him personally. The Postal Service can trace its roots back to the Second Continental Congress. Not even the Civil War, the Great Depression, or 9/11 stopped the mail from making its way into people's homes and mailboxes. And now during the pandemic, the brave, dedicated men and women of the U.S. Postal Service have risked their own personal health and safety to get the job done. Some have been infected by COVID-19. Some have tragically died. These are the frontline essential workers who have kept supply chains moving, delivered vital personal protective gear and medications, helped businesses reach their customers. The post office motto, neither snow nor rain nor heat nor gloom of night will keep us from our appointed rounds. That's true until they met Donald Trump. He's been the first to be able to break that model. Instead of giving the post office the support it needs, this president, with the help of his political crony, Postmaster General DeJoy, is doing everything he can to undermine, delay, and outright stop the mail. From stonewalling Congress's efforts to provide additional funding, to sudden hiring freezes and buyouts, to cutting staffing hours and prohibiting overtime, to closing down sorting machines that can do large volumes, the Postmaster General, aided by the President, is literally putting lives and livelihoods at risk. I've heard from so many constituents across New Jersey. Some have been waiting weeks for life-saving medication or diabetes supplies. Think about New Jersey families who receive a check, a veteran, someone on Social Security by mail, and need them to pay their rent, their mortgage, and utility bills. And the seniors who get their Social Security checks and pensions by mail. Think about our veterans and active duty military who rely on the Postal Service to get their VA benefits, medications, letters, and care packages from loved ones when they're deployed. Think about all those small businesses who rely on efficient mail service to receive and or deliver products and merchandise. The COVID-19 pandemic has already hit New Jersey families and small businesses hard. Delaying mail delivery can be the breaking point for those barely scraping by or struggling to stay open. In the midst of a national public health and economic crisis, the last thing people need to worry about is whether they'll get their medicine or paychecks on time. And when did this sabotage begin? At the same time that Democrats in Congress were fighting to pass a COVID-19 stimulus package that extends expanded unemployment benefits and housing protections, provides our towns, cities, counties, and states with the flexible funding they need to maintain essential services, and a host of other priorities, including robust funding for the U.S. Postal Service. And if you're wondering why Donald Trump would risk the health and safety of the American people, why he'd be so cavalier about our economy on the brink and people's lives hanging in the balance, he told us straight up. Just the other day, when asked why he's blocking funding for the Postal Service, President Trump said, and I quote, "If we don't make a deal, that means they, the Postal Service, don't get the money. That means they can't have universal mail-in voting. They just can't have it. They just can't have it." The President of the United States is on record saying he will not fund the post office because he believes it in his personal political interest to disrupt and discredit the election process and disenfranchise millions of voters. Because of the pandemic and the increased health risks both to poll workers and voters lined up to cast ballots on Election Day, many states like New Jersey have taken smart, prudent steps to expand vote by mail. Americans have been voting by mail for generations. It's a time-tested, secure way for voters in our democracy to exercise their constitutional right to vote. I have voted by mail when I've had to be in Washington. And yet the president has blanketed the airways with unfounded, unsubstantiated claims and offers zero evidence of widespread problems with vote by mail. It's a flat-out lie meant to cast doubt in the upcoming election. And now he's trying to stop the ballots from even being counted. The reality is that Donald Trump is running scared. He's afraid if Americans are able to vote fairly and securely, that he will lose. He's afraid that the vast majority of Americans are fed up with his tweets, his bullying, and his lack of leadership. He's afraid that the American people will hold him accountable for his failed response to the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic fallout. He's afraid that the American people will see him for what he really is, a fraud. So make no mistake, Donald Trump will do whatever it takes to delay, destruct, and delegitimize the election. He does not care about you or anyone but himself. He doesn't care if a senior or a veteran who depends on the mail to get their life-saving medication dies because the delivery was delayed. He doesn't care if you don't get your paycheck on time to pay the rent and your family gets kicked to the curb. He doesn't care that you might have to stand for hours in line to vote in person, exposing yourself and ultimately your family to COVID-19. Because you're worried that your vote by mail won't be counted and the stakes in the election are too high to sit it out. Bottom line, he just doesn't care if your right to vote is taken entirely away. Make no mistake, this kind of suppression comes straight out of a dictator's playbook. It is shocking to see it in the United States of America. The U.S. Postal Service recently sent a notice to 46 states, including New Jersey, warning that not all mail-in ballots will arrive in time to be counted. That is a dangerous attack on our nation and our democracy. Never has that happened. Donald Trump has voted by mail himself multiple times. And just last week, he requested an absentee ballot for tomorrow's primary in Florida. If voting by mail is good enough for Donald Trump, it's good enough for the American people. If the administration continues down this path of defunding the Postal Service, our democracy and our economy will suffer. Families, small businesses, thousands of frontline postal workers will be put in harm's way. And it's not an exaggeration to say that innocent people will get hurt. But I refuse to sit back and let that happen. We won't stop fighting for the resources New Jersey needs to defeat COVID-19, take care of our residents, and help our economy recover. We won't stop fighting for the men and women of the U.S. Postal Service and all of those who rely on their efforts. That's why the Senate Democrats have asked for the Postmaster General to also appear before the Senate. That's why the ranking Democrat on the respective committee has asked for the Postal Service, for the Postmaster General and the chair of the board to ultimately appear before their committee of oversight. Every American should be appalled by what the president is doing. It's time for everyone to rise up and say, enough is enough. And before I introduce my friend and the Hudson County Executive, Tom DeJoy, let me just say a few words in Spanish.